Hello and welcome to NewsClick. We have with us today Professor Jayati Ghosh from Jawaharlal Nehru University Economics Department. Professor Ghosh, welcome to NewsClick. Greece is currently in the news as an economic hotspot, and basically the question of sovereign default of Greece, the risk to the eurozone economy, all these issues are coming up. So what do you think is the crisis that you see for Greece, which is currently being talked about?
Well, what's happening to Greece is, in an interesting way, what many developing countries have gone through. And it's really a combination of having the inability to have an independent monetary and fiscal policy, combined with the fact that during the boom, you were chosen as a favored destination. And this creates a situation where you then become uncompetitive. Suddenly, international finance looks at you and decides that your prospects are not good. They pull out and you have a currency crisis, which translates into a debt crisis and then a financial crisis domestically. This is something that countries as far apart as Turkey, Ecuador, Argentina have experienced. It's relatively new in the developed world.
Greece is at the heart of the European Union because it's a part of the eurozone. Do you think that the Greece crisis in that sense also spells a problem for the European Union and the euro as a currency?
Yes, in fact, the euro was always an unlikely currency, because the point is really that since currencies are all about confidence, there is typically the currency has always been backed by a state. So the euro is the first successful example of a currency union without a political union. The difficulty is that when you want adjustment, either you allow specific regions, areas, to actually do their own adjustment mechanism through an exchange rate devaluation or through independent monetary policy, or you have fiscal federalism. That is, the center steps in and bails out the elements of the periphery. Now, the United States is another currency union. There are states in the United States, California, Florida, which are actually in worse financial position than Greece. But they don't have that same attack on their financial markets because the United States federal government is going to bail them out. What you don't have in the eurozone is that same central government, which is seen as a kind of ultimate sovereign backing.
The Greece crisis seems to have been compounded by the fact that they did some fancy accounting to keep within the bounds of the eurozone 3% limit.
Yes.
Now, a part of it also seems to have been helped by the international banks, particularly Goldman Sachs, which became a bank very recently. Do you think that that has actually contributed also to the kind of problems that Greece is seeing?
Yes, very much so. But let's begin firstly with this 3% fiscal deficit limit. That itself is a very stupid limit. Part of the Maastricht criteria for joining the eurozone was precisely that a country has to never have more than 3% of GDP fiscal deficit, which is very foolish because it is pro-cyclical. It makes the cycle worse. In a boom, governments spend too much. In the recession, they add to the recession by cutting down on spending. Effectively, no government in Europe has actually met the eurozone's requirements, has met this 3% deficit. What happened in Greece, however, was an excessive use of creative accounting. And this was really facilitated by the proliferation of international finance, by the fact that certain banks, Goldman Sachs, of course, is the leader of the pack in this, enabled through extremely sophisticated financial and complicated financial instruments, not just credit default swaps, but very, very complex derivatives held in shell companies in London and elsewhere, managed to disguise something like 8% of GDP worth of debt that Greece was holding. When this finally came to light, as it would have to at some point or the other, then of course financial markets panicked, and then you get the classic move out of Greece.
So what do you think is the future of the eurozone? Do you think the German banks and the French banks would actually have to step in, bail Greece out? Do you think it will go to the International Monetary Fund? Or do you think eurozone itself isn't going to be in a state of crisis?
It's a very complicated situation for the leaders of the eurozone, essentially Germany, but also I would say France. It's complicated. Why? Because if you bail out Greece, then you are sending a signal to other countries. They're called the pigs now: Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain, which are all in broadly the same region. Yeah, they're in a queue of a potential bailout because all of them have got large fiscal deficits, large debts, which are sooner or later going to get pressured. So they are sending a signal. And that, of course, means financial markets will rush because they will be delighted to then go and attack the Spanish and the Irish and the Italian and so on and so forth. So there's a problem in terms of if they bail out, yes, they might have to bail out many more, and can the finances of the euro area support it? If they don't bail out, then the eurozone will not exist. There's really no choice.
In which case we are going to face a much more severe international crisis as well, if the eurozone sinks or the euro as a currency sinks.
Yes, you see, there are different kinds of crises. I think the fundamental forces pushing for the eurozone were actually political. And I think those political forces for union are still very strong. There's too much resting in that idea of European integration for them to allow it to collapse for this. For the same reason, they will not allow Greece to go to the IMF. They're going to keep it in the family. For the same reason, they are going to eventually bail out Greece, having made all the noises.
So you think whatever happens, that at least temporarily, the European zone or the euro as a currency would survive this particular crisis?
This particular crisis, whether it will survive in the medium term without genuine fiscal federalism, as I said, that's the critical aspect of currency union. That remains to be seen. I felt it was always a conundrum that you could have the economic union without fiscal federalism. It's now been exposed that you can't have it. Whether they will move towards fiscal federalism or whether they will move to the breakup of the currency union remains to be seen.
Thanks, Professor Ghosh. This is quite interesting. I think we're going to see this unfold over the next few months and come back to this again. Thank you.